And you know this, having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own?
Jesse Ventura just called out Donald Trump's son live on television, and he did not hold back for a single second. I'm Johnson. This is The Johnson Show. Ventura, a Navy SEAL, a former governor, a man whose entire family has served in uniform across 3 wars, sat across from Piers Morgan and laid out something nobody in mainstream media wants to say directly, that Trump is sending other people's kids to fight wars while his own family has never served a single day. Ventura went further, comparing ICE tactics in Minneapolis to the Gestapo and demanding Piers explain why chemical weapons banned in actual warfare are somehow acceptable against American citizens. Piers tried to keep up. He did not. If you are tired of watching people dance around the truth about who actually sacrifices in this country, hit subscribe because The Johnson Show says what needs to be said. Let's get into exactly what Ventura unloaded on live television.
Theory.
Yeah.
It may be right, but it doesn't jibe with what my information flow is because, as I said, Trump didn't want this military action. It wasn't his arrogance that, I kicked Venezuela's butt, so now I can do the same thing to Iran. I mean, he would have told me if you wanted it. That's what we would have discussed, how to go about it militarily. That's not what we discussed. It was how to get a deal. So going forward, here's how I see it. Iran's going to have to make a deal because Trump's not going to stop. And if he has to lose the midterms, he'll lose the midterms. Remember, he didn't have to run again. Okay? He's not stopping. He's not going to say, we lost, ever. That's number one. So the deal is going to look like Iran will allow weapons inspectors in, probably from the UN, to examine what's going on with the nukes. They'll stop enriching, and they will destroy their ballistic missile capacity, which is already almost destroyed. So we're only talking about a few missiles, not many. Okay, in return, there'll be more favorable economic treatment for Iran on a rebuild basis. Trump knows he's not going to get regime change, so that's, he can saber rattle on it, but that's not going to happen unless the Persian people rise up. And, with these people gunning you down in the street, you're a student of history a little bit, Piers. In 1945, when the Russians were coming in from the east and the Allies coming in from the west to Berlin, the German people didn't rise up against Hitler. Nobody rose up against Hitler in Germany because the SS would shoot you down in the street. It's the same thing going on in Iran. So likely, and I think within a space of a couple of weeks, this thing will cease and some kind of an arrangement will be made so that the mullahs can tell their people they didn't lose and Trump can tell his people they won. We won. America won. That's what's likely to happen.
Bill O'Reilly, I will invite you back in 2 weeks' time and we shall see.
If I'm not deported, I may be in Portugal.
You know what? You'll be even nearer to me, Bill. Get on a plane to London.
Yeah.
Great to have you.
We're coming to England at the end of May, and you're gonna do an interview with me. I'm telling you, you're gonna do, or I'm coming to your house about this Muslim intrusion. On London.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so you're in, right?
I'm happy to talk about that.
All right. Excellent. We'll set it on up. Thanks for having me on the program.
And I'd love to see you on the set of Uncensored while you're here. It'd be great.
Okay.
Bill, great to have you. Thanks very much. Well, Jesse Ventura is a former US Navy SEAL, a former professional wrestler, a former actor, and a former governor of Minnesota. We've had many memorable interviews over the years. I'm pleased to say he joins me again now. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing good, Piers. It's been a long time for you and I. I tried to retire, but, I tried to retire, but unfortunately, They sent the Gestapo to my high school and they hit it with chemical weapons, which are a war crime. And that brought me back out of retirement to stand up against the war criminal in the White House.
Wow. Well, that sounds suitably dramatic.
Well, that's the way it happened. I mean, I was retired. I hadn't watched the news since the last election. My son said, "You're way better, Dad. You're not tense anymore. Keep it up." And then lo and behold, these ICE characters, I call them the Gestapo, and I think I can do that. And let me get something straight right now, Piers, so people know where I'm coming from. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I. My parents both fought in World War II. My father had 6 bronze battle stars in Europe. My mother was a nurse in North Africa, which predated Normandy, fighting Rommel, the Desert Fox, the greatest German general. Both my parents were World War II veterans. My brother and I are both Vietnam veterans and member of the Navy UDT SEAL. We both did 2 tours to Southeast Asia. So everyone in my family is a war veteran. I wanted to get that out right now, so it'll help with the things that I'm going to say to you in the moments to come.
Ventura laid his family's service record out for a reason. 3 generations, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Navy SEAL teams. That's not padding. That's the foundation for the question he's about to ask. If a war is worth fighting, is it worth sending your own kids to fight it? Trump has sons of military age, and not one has served, Trump included, despite deferments during Vietnam. Ventura calling out Barron directly is blunt, but the challenge underneath it is a real one. Who actually pays the cost of war, and who gets to order it from a distance? Then comes the Minneapolis comparison, and Ventura doesn't soften it. He calls ICE the Gestapo. Piers pushes back, says that's overstating it. But Ventura's actual point is worth sitting with. Chemical agents are banned in warfare against enemy combatants under international law, yet get used domestically against American civilians with far less restriction. His uncle was gassed in World War I, and it ruined his life. That's the history behind the question, and it's a fair one to ask.
So ICE agents came to your school, you said?
What's that?
You said the ICE agents came to your school?
Yeah, the ICE agents came to the school where I went to high school, chasing some guy down just like the Gestapo. And I heard people were offended calling them that. Really? I can tell you right now, if my parents would have been alive and they would have seen what happened in Minneapolis, they would have called it the Gestapo too. So they come to my school, they use tear gas and pepper spray at the school. Now here's a question I have, Piers. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I, and he was gassed. He came home, but his life was ruined. He could never do anything. What did they do? They outlawed it. Gas using chemical weapons became a war crime. Why is it that you can't use them on your enemy, but you're allowed to use them on your own people? That has always been, where is the media on this? You know, using chemical weapons against our own people, which is in essence a war crime.
Well, I think I wouldn't describe the gas used by ICE agents as chemical weapons. I mean, that infers weapons of mass
tear
destruction.
gas. They're spraying people from 6 inches away right in their face. I can't use that in war. I wasn't allowed to carry tear gas or any type of chemical weapon in war. It's banned from war. It's considered a war crime. You can't use it against your enemy, but you can use it against your own people. Doesn't something ring wrong there for you, Piers?
Well, a lot rang wrong about what was going on in Minnesota, and I'm very glad that it has been resolved, at least for now. And I think
it
Donald
hasn't
Trump
been resolved.
Well, no, not
Piers,
completely, but
nothing's been resolved.
No, I understand.
We have 2 dead people here.
Yeah,
2 people were killed by the Gestapo here.
Yeah, I understand. And those investigations are ongoing, but at least the ICE activity that was going on and the way it was being conducted has been removed from Minnesota, which is a good thing. And I thought what happened was appalling. And I said so at the time. Let me ask you about Iran and your view of this war.
Well, here's how I feel about it. There's a simple thing as a leader. And you know this, having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own? So I'm calling right now for Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son. You know, after all, he's had 3 wives, he's had kids by each wife, and nobody's ever served in the military. To my knowledge, a Trump in the last 100 years has never done military service. Well, Barron, you can change that. Enlist in the United States military right now. Do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. I want to see a Trump in the military. Everybody in my family has served, so I think I can say that with all due confidence. Come on, Trumps. Don't just reap the benefits of this free world. Somebody put on the uniform, and that's you, Barron. And I heard the excuse that Barron might be too tall. David Robinson served on active duty. He was 7 feet tall before he ever went to the San Antonio Spurs basketball team. David Robinson went to the United States Navy Military Academy. He's one of my officers, not directly, but he would have been.
Okay, look, it's one argument that a Trump should serve. That's a perfectly reasonable argument to make. A lot of people feel that way. But it doesn't change what's going on in Iran. What is your view of this war? Do you think it's a legitimate war? Many people think that the Iranian regime has been the instrument of terror through the Middle East for 40 years.
Of course they have been. Of course they have been, Piers. But wait a minute. Trump then calls you guys NATO cowards. Wait a minute. NATO is set up to protect. That means that if a NATO country is attacked, they will all join together to repel it. It doesn't go in reverse. It doesn't mean if one of the NATO countries starts a war that all the others have to join in. That ain't part of the deal. The deal is protection, not...
Let's actually sit with what Jesse Ventura put on the table, because underneath the confrontation was a set of arguments that deserve more than a quick dismissal, and Piers Morgan never fully engaged with any of them. Start with the military service question, because this is the one people will want to wave away as a cheap shot, and it is not. Ventura's family has 3 generations of documented service: World War I, World War II, 2 tours in Vietnam as a Navy SEAL. That record gives him standing to ask the question directly: why does a man who avoided service himself get to send other people's children into a war zone while his own sons have never worn a uniform? This is not a new argument in American politics. It goes back generations, but it lands differently coming from someone who has actually lived the alternative. Calling out Barron Trump by name was uncomfortable, deliberately so, because Ventura wanted the discomfort to register. The question of who bears the actual cost of war and who simply authorizes it from a distance is one this country has never fully reckoned with, and Ventura forced it into the room. Then came Minneapolis, and this is where the exchange revealed something important about how differently the same tactics get evaluated depending on who they are used against. Ventura described ICE agents deploying tear gas and pepper spray at his old high school, and he called it the Gestapo without flinching. Piers tried to soften that comparison, framing tear gas as something categorically different from a weapon of mass destruction. But that response misses Ventura's actual point entirely. Chemical agents are banned from use against enemy combatants in war under international law, full stop, no exceptions for how mild the agent supposedly is. Yet those same agents get deployed against American civilians on American soil with a fraction of that scrutiny. Ventura's uncle came home from World War I gassed, and his life was never the same. That is not an abstract historical reference. That is the lived reason his family understands exactly what these weapons do to a person. If it is too inhumane for war, the burden should be on defenders of domestic use to explain why civilians deserve less protection than enemy soldiers, not the other way around. And then there is the part that should not get lost in the theater of the exchange. 2 people are dead. Piers tried to frame the situation as resolved because ICE activity had been scaled back in Minneapolis. Ventura refused to let that framing stand, and he was right to. Scaling back an operation is not accountability. It is not justice. It is not an answer to 2 families who lost someone. Ventura held that line clearly, refusing to let de-escalation get mistaken for resolution. This is the through line of the entire segment. Ventura was not performing outrage for its own sake. He was applying a consistent standard. The same standard he applies to Trump's family, to war, to chemical weapons, to who actually gets held accountable in this country and who does not. Piers pushed back where he could, but never actually dismantled a single one of Ventura's points, because there was nothing false in what Ventura said, only things that are uncomfortable to hear stated plainly on live television. This is The Johnson Show, and we are not afraid to let people say the uncomfortable thing when it happens to be true. If this mattered to you, stay with us, because there is more of this coming.